I went to New York, and everything's like L1, like the tubes basically, or the subway shit. They're like, well, I actually think that one of our greatest brands is our tube map. And but who came up with the names? And I'm going back in time. Then also it got me thinking, who came up with the fucking road names? Like, who did that? How was that come around?
Enough, I never met him because he died. My wife knew him.
Yeah.
She knew the guy called Schulze Felix, who is responsible for numbering and naming the German autobahns. He wasn't a Nazi, but he was a senior civil servant. There is actually an intelligence to road names.
Yeah.
Which is that, roughly speaking, they go clockwise from the A1 all the way around. And then the A41 is an offshoot. Typically, the way it works is the A40X is an offshoot of the A4. And the
What about the road names in London?
So, for example, the A21 is sort of an offshoot of the A2. Okay, it's far from being exact. Okay, but essentially, the shorter the fewer the number of numbers, the more significant a road it is. A roads are more significant than B roads, and so.
What's M3 is more significant?
So the A1, I think, is Watling Street, which is largely originally on the path of a Roman road. The A4, by the way, I mean, Piccadilly is technically the A4, and the Bayswater Road in Oxford Street is technically the A40.
Well, the A3 goes all the way into London Bridge, into Southwark.
Into Southwark, you're absolutely right.
The
Yes.
The A3 is what I take in.
So I mean, no one ever referred to Selfridges, okay, as being on the A40.
Yeah.
But technically it is.
Yeah. What about the other roads in terms of like?
And by the way, I have no idea who the people are who do this, but practically every road in Britain has a Wikipedia entry.
Really?
Which is extraordinary. And literally it will go into the history of the road, the fact that sometimes roads actually overlap. So you actually have a case where two roads actually become one and then separate again. I think that happens down in Sussex, which is the road to Eastbourne and the A272 or something. They actually become maybe the A26 and the A20. This is turning into an unbelievably tedious podcast for the 99% of people. But I mean, it is the gift of Wikipedia to people who are mildly on the spectrum, like me, okay, is absolutely limitless because I have no sense of proportion about the value of knowledge. I don't really evaluate knowledge by how valuable it is. It's just knowledge, and I value it for its own sake. And so I will literally spend time sitting down and reading the Wikipedia entry on the A26.
What about the actual road names in London? Like,
the A272, by the way, there is a road, I'm going to plug this because it's a great book, by a Dutch author called A272 Ode to a Road. And it's a Dutch tourist. Just technically, the A272 goes all the way from Maresfield in, I assume it's East Sussex, all the way to Winchester. And so it's a road that goes right across southern England, and it's spectacularly interesting and beautiful. But this, I mean, not all of it, but this Dutch guy has actually written, you can buy it on Amazon, A272 Ode to a Road, a Dutch tourist, basically homage to an A road.
Yeah, not to make this a road podcast.
No, let's.
Well, yeah, but one of the things, so I was listening to a podcaster the other week who was saying, basically, if you've got a car in the UK versus the US or Europe, actually, your enjoyment levels in Europe are like through the roof compared to the US, because the US road systems are just grids, whereas here you can properly fucking drive. And he was basically saying, I've got cars in both countries.
So curves are to some extent...
Basically curves, country roads. I've got American family friends. They came round and they're like, what the fuck? Like, we're going through these roads. They're from LA. They're like,
the other thing I didn't realise, in the US, a speed limit is not just a restriction, it's also advisory. Which is, if you have a 60 mile an hour speed limit, it means that on that road it is safe to drive at 60 miles an hour. And so Americans come here, and this is why my automatic cruise control goes slightly wacko, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's American. My car's American. It's made in Mexico. It's a Mustang Mach-E. And it sees a 60 sign and immediately automatically accelerates to 60. And Americans don't understand it because they come out of a small village, in Kent. And there's a sign that basically says no restriction, 60. Now, what that means to a Brit is use your own judgment, but technically it's not illegal to hit 60 on this stretch of road where conditions allow. In the United States, that 60 sign means it is safe from now on to drive at 60 miles an hour. And so Americans go, are you people insane? Who the hell would drive on this winding road at 60 miles an hour? And the answer, of course, you wouldn't, because you exercise your own judgment according to the conditions of the road.
Also the road,
so
like
road signs
roads
in America just fundamentally mean something different.
But also our roads, as in that drive down to Cornwall, is fucking idyllic. Whereas in America, it's not always, but a lot of the time, it's just basically these fucking straight roads.
Of course, Londoners, interestingly, Londoners don't enjoy driving because they don't drive very often. If you don't drive very often, you don't enjoy driving. And then, so you know what it is when you first hire a car, right? It's an unfamiliar car. For the first 20 minutes or so, you don't really enjoy it until you get into a flow state. You're familiar with the controls and the indicators and everything else. If you drive your car very infrequently, as a lot of Londoners who own cars do, or Londoners who rent cars, and they make the mistake of renting a car in central London, so the first 40 minutes is driving through central London in appalling traffic, okay, then Londoners are going to disparage cars completely unfairly because they've never experienced how great it is to own a car in pleasant driving conditions where there isn't too much traffic, where you're familiar with the car. Now, there's one exception to that, by the way. Driving in London between about 1 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, is one of the greatest experiences you can have.
So it's
a total late night driving. There was actually a Volkswagen ad. One of my favourite ads of all time was just night driving by Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Based on the insight that, particularly for smaller Volkswagen cars often bought in cities, there is this extraordinary moment where everybody understands why they have a car, which is rumbling down, rumbling through Shooters Hill at kind of 2 o'clock in the morning, or taking the A217 down towards whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Okay, some of those drives in London are at the right time. It used to be before they put speed cameras on the elevated section of the Westway. You could hit 80 on the Westway on the elevated section. That was a total bloody joy.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.